Hey everybody, so I have been getting a lot of messages and there's been a lot of interest in my um, videos that I did about peripartum cardiomyopathy and kind of like what my experience was and how we got it diagnosed and everything. So I thought I would just hop on here while my daughter is sleeping, and I don't even have makeup on, you guys, so just bear with me. But I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about it, and yeah. So I was diagnosed with what they thought was peripartum cardiomyopathy about 4.5 years ago, and I have been recovered since then. So what that is it is a rare form of cardiomyopathy, which cardiomyopathy is the big word for heart failure. So it is heart failure that comes after a pregnancy, or it can even happen at the late stages of a pregnancy and up until 5 months postpartum, I think. So mine was a little bit different than a lot of cases, and it wasn't caught for about a month and a half. But I was having some issues, and so I ended up having a C-section, and I think that actually contributed to why I ended up having heart failure. So what heart failure is, it's not your heart actually failing. It's kind of, that's what it sounds like, but what it actually is so you have your whole circulatory system in your body. The stuff, the fluid, the blood, and everything comes in, and then your heart is not effectively pushing it out. A lot of older people get congestive heart failure, and that is where stuff is just building up in their lungs because their heart is not pushing it out, and they basically almost like drown. So yeah, so that's congestive heart failure. A lot of times, like with a pregnancy, you get a lot of fluid built up in your body. We all know that, like, we retain fluid and stuff when we're pregnant. And sometimes the heart just has a hard time pushing those fluids back out. They can tell whether or not you have heart failure based on what they call your ejection fraction, which is the percent of fluid that is getting pushed back out. So mine was down to between 20 and 25%, my ejection fraction, when it was first diagnosed. So that means my heart was not pushing out hardly anything, and the fluid was just backing up. One of the most common symptoms of heart failure is a shortness of breath, which in pregnancy is kind of a common thing. So that's why it's often missed or misdiagnosed, because a lot of the symptoms are pretty similar to just like normal pregnancy things. So I did have some shortness of breath, but my main symptom, I guess, was back pain right up where my heart was. So that was missed. My particular situation, my son actually had passed away, and so all of that kind of happened at once, and it was always up for debate with me about whether or not it was due to the virus or due to the pregnancy. Pregnancy now caused by the virus and not by the pregnancy. There's no way to really know that. The only way that we could have known that is if we had done like a biopsy right after delivery to see if it was in, the virus was like in the heart tissue and that kind of thing. We didn't do that because we didn't know. So that, I feel like I'm rambling and I'm not getting to the point, but I don't really have a point. I'm just talking about it. Um, so I went to the doctor, to the cardiologist. I had had tachycardia before, and which is where my heart would beat really fast. And I went to the doctor to rule out things with my heart because I could not figure out the back pain. I was in the hospital for a couple weeks after my son passed away because of the virus, the CMV virus that I had, and I was sepsis. So, like, my whole body was just overtaken by the virus. Um, and they actually thought in the hospital that the back pain I was experiencing was just like a manifestation of the grief. Sometimes your body does really weird things when you're completely overcome by grief and things like that. So that is what they thought. And so I almost feel like maybe they wrote it off a little bit, but the back pain just did not get better. And I just knew it wasn't in my head. I have actually been in lots of groups now with women who have had peripartum cardiomyopathy, and it's a common theme that women had a C-section, and actually back pain is a pretty common symptom that doctors don't really know about. I don't even know if they don't know about it. It's just like in this little group of women. We all kind of experienced the same thing, so I feel like that was definitely a symptom of it. I don't think it's one that you'll find in textbooks, but another, big symptom is just the shortness of breath, and some women actually had some really, really scary things happen to them, and they, had to have life vests and all these things. Some women have had to have surgery, so it can be really, really serious. And I don't feel like it's something that is really like talked about by the medical field or by doctors. I was never even like checked for it. It was something, like I said, that came weeks and weeks later. And because I like sought it out and went to the cardiologist just to get tested, and they did an echocardiogram, which is basically an ultrasound on my heart, and they realized my heart wasn't effectively like pushing things out. So that is what happened. I immediately got on beta blockers, and I tried to be on an ACE inhibitor, and that was too much for me. It just caused like my blood pressure to be way too low, and I was basically like blacking out every single time I stood up. And so I had to stop with the ACE inhibitor, but I was on the beta blocker for about 3 years, probably 3.5 years. All through my second pregnancy, I was on it. Metoprolol is what I was on. And I just stopped about a year ago. And I actually haven't had an echo in about a year. And but everything was fine. Everything has been fine. So I'm just going to keep hoping and praying that we don't relapse and we don't have any issues. But if you guys have any sort of questions about anything, you can message me. If you have questions about a pregnancy after the fact, you can message me, and I'll be happy to answer any more questions. I know this video wasn't as informative as I thought. I ended up being like having a hard time staying focused. So, okay, so there we have it. Bye.